This video was made possible by you. If you want to save time and support what I do, check the link in the description that will take you to my store where you can purchase the source file for what we're creating in this video, as well as other tutorials on my channel. Thank you for your support, and let's get back to the video. So why don't we continue redesigning the design that I received from one of my viewers a while back. Feel free to check the link in the description where you can submit your designs. As you can see, we have finalized this part, which means the hero section. Then we got this about us and what we offer nicely integrated within this section. So let's focus on this area for now. Yeah. So I'm just gonna take these and I'm gonna move them outside of this frame. I'm pressing Option to duplicate. And I want to make sure that when I resize these images that the image actually stays intact, meaning the aspect ratio doesn't change, right? So as you can see, that is the case with seemingly all these images, which is nice. And in case you're interested why that is, this is because when you go to this section, when you go to fill and you click on the image, you can see that it actually says fill. If we were to do crop and then we would resize this, you can see it's going to be deformed, which is not what we want. So whenever you get this behavior, make sure to go for fill. Yeah. Nice. So this works. All of this works. And this is going to be pretty straightforward. I think I'm just going to extend this frame. Yeah, I'm going to move this over here for a little bit. Extend it down. And let's just very quickly think about what could be improved in this section. Keeping aesthetics out of the consideration for now, because this looks pretty good. Yeah, although some minor alignment issues that I would take a look at may be there. However, in my opinion, when you are presenting yourself as a company or as a photographer or like an agency or whoever, and I saw your page like that, I would definitely assume that there has to be something more to your portfolio than just these 4 photos. Makes sense. I think what's missing here is some kind of a like continuation UI pattern. Meaning, I think I would probably add like a button that says see the full portfolio or see all of our photos, or just somehow visualize that there's more than just these 4 photos. I think we could do this. Let me actually just start creating this. I'm going to press Shift G to view all these guides. As you can see, we're working with the 12 column grid. I am going to duplicate this. I'm going to duplicate this by again pressing Alt and then dragging or Option. I'm going to press Command Option right bracket to move this towards the top, to bring it to the top. We don't want this behind this rectangle. And I would just say our work. Yeah, I think that works. Pun not intended. And I would just make all of these squares. And let's take a look at the size. Why don't I simply make it 4 columns, and for the height, it's going to be the same. So 365, let's say. Yeah, so this could be a square, and all of these actually could be squares. So why don't I do, wait, this is actually going to be 368. Yeah. So let me select all of these and go 368. 368, yeah, and I'm gonna move them over here. Now, what is going on here? That doesn't seem right, does it? That's the thing that I have in mind. I'm gonna show you. I think we could actually do this quite cool thing, or quite cool pattern, where it's gonna fade out into transparency, meaning the photos, right? And there's going to be a button somewhere around here where you can move through the carousel. So this is going to be like a carousel. And then I would put another button here, maybe not as big, that would say view all of, view portfolio, view full portfolio or something like that. Let me actually hide the guides for a bit. All right, so to do this, I'm actually going to group all of these. So select all these images, Command G, and then frame, yeah? Turn this into a frame. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to create a rectangle that is the same size. So that's going to be 1544 by 368. And I am going to place that, Command X, inside of the frame. I'm going to rename this frame to Photos Container. Paste, Command V, or Control V if you are on Windows. And again, Command Option left bracket to move this towards the very bottom. I am going to now go to this rectangle. I'm going to rename this to mask because this is going to be a mask. I will then select the gradient fill type and go from white to white, except the other white is going to be completely transparent. Yeah. So we're going to have a rectangle that looks like this. It's not evident from this. So let me just hide these so they can see. This is what we have, right? We have this rectangle that goes from white to transparent. And it's going to be stored beneath all these images. And now I'm simply going to go to this section over here, more actions, and I'm going to say use as mask. And this has masked all these images. Maybe we want to change where exactly the fade out starts and where it ends. So why don't I turn on the guides again, Shift G, and I'm going to move this so that it ends around here and begins around here, let's say. Yeah, why not? I think this could work. Or it could go even beyond that, I think. Yeah, something like that. And I think what I'm gonna do next is select this button. I'm gonna duplicate it, okay? Alt and drag. And I'm going to remove this text. And I am going to shrink this. Or better yet, I'm gonna hug this, make this hug, right? I'm gonna set the padding to 24 and 24. And I'm going to also rotate this. I think we actually are gonna have to shrink this a little bit so that it has the same width and height. So 48 by 48, and then fully rounded, yeah? So let's go for 24. And this is going to be actually black. So 0, 100 opacity, and it's gonna sit somewhere around here. I'm gonna just move this. I'm using shift and arrows to move this in this frame. And now here's a problem, right? The problem is the button is being masked by this mask as well, and we don't want that. Meaning, if I move this towards the right, you can see how it's being faded away, but I don't want this to be affected by this mask, essentially. So what do we do? First, I'm going to turn off the mask, then I'm going to group all these images, or better yet, create an auto layout. I'm going to rename this to Photos Auto Layout. And then I'm going to select the mask and the photo auto layout, and then I'm going to mask it. So what's going to happen now is it's going to create a mask group. And as you can see, this button is no longer affected by the fade. So it's also quite important to understand how exactly these masks work. And I am going to place this button somewhere around here, so it makes sense. So it's somewhere around the fade, above the fade, but not outside completely. I think we could even adjust this fade so that there's more transparency beneath the button. Yeah, something like that. And yeah, let's see how this looks. I'm going to turn off the guides. And I actually think this could be bigger. So let's make this 64. And actually, by accident, I have created like a rounded rectangle button instead of a fully rounded button. And I think this is pretty good, to be honest. I think I'm going to keep it. And I'm going to add a shadow. Let's see what a shadow will do. So it pops from the screen, yeah? From the layout. Just a tiny bit like that. Just to very subtly show that there is something to be pressed. And I think this could be actually a little bit bigger, although, or not. Let's just keep it as it is. Let me select this and this, Shift A, and then a headline plus photos. And the spacing is going to be what? I don't know, 40 maybe, or 48. And then let's take this and go Shift A again, and this is going to be a bigger spacing. This is going to be like 64, just to show that this is slightly more related than these two things. And we're doing that by spacing. That's the law of proximity for you. And now, why don't I let's just use guides. Why don't I create some nice spacing from these buttons? Like quite a big one, but not so much. We could do double whatever is here. So 96 times 2 approximately. That's 192, I hope. I think that's too much. Let's go for 120. 120 seems about right. So let's take a look at this again. I think this is better because the user is going to get the option to view the full portfolio. You're going to show that there is more to your portfolio than just these 4 images. As far as the user is concerned now, there could be like 8 additional images, right? Which I would probably recommend to go for 5 to 7, I think. But in my view, 4 is just too little. All right, this is looking pretty good. Why don't we finish the rest? Yeah, let's finish the rest. Let's see what we can do here. Let me move this up. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to duplicate this and say contact us. I'm gonna make this hug. And it's gonna be pretty simple. So like a standard form. I think we could go for like translucent white. That would be about, I don't know, 64 pixels tall, like 16 opacity, yeah, something like that. And we're gonna need some labels for these forms. And the best practice generally is to put labels above the field. So let's just go name and surname. I think I would go for white so that there's big enough contrast. Let's just select these two, Shift A to add auto layout, and let's go for 24 on the spacing. Let's go for fill on the text. Maybe go for 16 actually. I think that could work. Let's duplicate this twice. Select this again, Shift A, and let's go for 40 in the case of the spacing on all the fields container together, yeah? And I would increase the height of the very last field and make this fill container. So we could go to fill container on this field as well. So this is fill container and this is also fill container. Let's just do a bit of naming here. Let's do form. Let's do name. This is going to be email. And the last one's going to be message. Yeah, of course, we need to reflect this in the labels. So we're going to say email, message. And of course, we need a submit button. So let's just borrow this, paste it in here, and let's click on submit. Let's type in submit. And I think also we could improve this by, instead of using submit, we could say something more fun. Let's talk, or let's talk maybe. I don't know. So as you can see, if you take a look at the overall design, what I've been doing so far is I have been working with the left hand alignment. So all of this sort of creates, also thanks to using the grid, all of this sort of creates this nice line that leads the eye and is easier to process, right? Whereas here you can see that the alignment is a bit of all over the place. So we need to fix that definitely, which I'm trying to do here. Now also what I like about this layout towards the end is this photo. I think having a form on one side and like a picture on the other side, that's quite nice. I just think we could blend it more nicely with the background, similar to what's being done here. But obviously we're going to have to think about how to blend this image in with the rest. I think we could try blend modes. I think we could go for lighten, right? And this is like a super quick, dirty trick. If you have a photo with a dark background, and you can then use blend mode like lighten, or in case if it were on like a light background, it would be multiply. And that basically just uses those parts of the image that will lighten the background. So then we get this effect. And I think this is pretty nice. Although, let me just experiment with adding a dark background, because it does look pretty cool having a completely dark background, completely black. Let's go for 0 and 0. And let's add this again here. Let's maybe do another gradient. Although, you know what? I think I'm gonna keep this. I am gonna keep this gray because this looks cool. We could also try making this really big. Yeah, I think I like this. I like this better than the dark, completely black version. And what I think we could also think about here is, first, let's move the form to the top. So Command Option, right bracket. Now it's above the photo, yeah? I think we could blur the background. So with this frame, with this field selected, let's go to Effects, Background Blur, and let's go for, I don't know, 32? What do you think? 32 could work well. Let's play around with the fill opacity. 8 could work also. I think this looks pretty nice, don't you think? Don't you agree? Yeah, or 40 on the blurring. Let's go for 40. Let's just copy the style from here. So Command Option C and Command V on these and on these. Right? So basically now they share the same style, which means it's gonna blur the background. So it's pretty nice. Let's just select these two, Shift A to clean this up. Let's see what we have here in terms of spacing. 48, let's do that to maintain consistency. For the spacing here, I think we could go for 192, to be honest. And then also with this, I think it's worth trying to somehow show what's the active state of this form going to look like. So why don't we, let's say, show that if one of those is active, we're going to get like a white stroke. We could also add the drop shadow to this form, you know, to again make it pop a little bit. Let's blur this, maybe a bit of opacity. Or actually, no, let's do it without the shadow. Yeah, I think this is nice. Let's just copy a text inside of this form and let's say this is an active form field. Let's say active form field at domain.com, right? Since this is an email. And yeah, I think this is pretty clear. What's active, what's not. And at the same time, I think we could just take these icons for Twitter, now X, so this is a bit outdated, but that doesn't matter. Let's just duplicate all of these select all of them, Shift A, set the spacing to, I don't know, 24. Let's make these icons a bit smaller. So let's make each of them like this one, let's say 32 on the height, 32 on the height as well, 32 also. We could ungroup this one. Whoops. We could now shrink the frame. Let's group this and then ungroup this, yeah. And then let's do 32 so that we have the same height on all of these. But here's a problem, right? So even though they are all 32, this one looks larger and this one looks larger, just optically. So somehow, even though you're like being precise mathematically, geometrically, you are not precise visually. And I'm going to try and remedy that. 32 on the width of this, let's say 32. No, I think now these are too small, right? So let's go for 35 and then 30, what? 7, 36, something like that. I think that's better. So let's just rename these to socials and slap them below the form, right? So within this auto layout. And also, of course, let's change the color to white. I think this is nice. I think this is pretty nice and like tidy. I think this needs more spacing. And I think we could go for bigger, like making it a bit translucent. And I think this also deserves like a hover state or something. So let's just very quickly sketch up a cursor. This is going to be black with a white stroke. It's going to be rounded a little bit. And I'm going to add a point. This doesn't really matter. This is just for the demo purposes. Let's say, and I'm going to place it inside here, rotate it. This is basically like a cursor mockup, right? And I want to show that when you hover over these socials, it's going to light up like that, yeah? Just to add a little bit of interactivity. So of course, yeah, this cursor is not going to be in the final design, but it still helps understanding the overall design behavior. I include this sometimes in my design to make it completely clear why one of them is lighter. I think this is a good practice. And yeah, I think we're done here. I think this is the whole page. Let's just shrink this a little bit. Let's just create the same spacing from the bottom of, let's say, 192. 10 more. Then yeah, I think we're good here. So let's just summarize a little bit. We played around with the layout, made it more compact, added some element that goes through the entire page, which is the gradient. So you have a gradual transition from a completely dark background to a lighter one. We've redesigned some sections, but overall still a very simple page. And I think this version is a little bit more easier to process. So of course, if you want to use this in your own project, check the link in the description. Feel free to grab the source file on my store. And thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.